driving back from Arizona after my cousin's wedding. Just me, my older brother Daniel, and our friend Jess. It was one of those road trips that starts fun and slowly turns strange. By midnight, the highway was empty. No gas stations, no headlights, just black desert on both sides, and an old road stretching forever. Jess was asleep in the back seat, and Daniel kept messing with the radio because it kept cutting to static. That's when we saw him. A man standing alone on the shoulder of the road. No car, no backpack, just standing there under a flickering roadside. I told Daniel not to stop. He laughed and said, "Relax, we're not in a horror movie." The guy looked normal enough, I guess. Jeans, dark jacket, maybe mid-40s. But something felt wrong. I didn't have a good feeling about it. But I guess I trusted Daniel's judgment. He wasn't waving for help or anything. He was just waiting? I don't know. Daniel slowed down anyway. The second we rolled near him, he walked straight to my window and tapped the glass. Not Daniel's side, mine. I froze. He smiled and asked, "Can you take me to the old Pine Motel?" His voice sounded calm, but his eyes looked empty. Daniel said sure, and before I could protest, the guy got in the back seat right next to Jess. She woke up immediately and looked terrified. The man never introduced himself, never thanked us, just stared forward. The ride was so awkward and a little terrifying. After 10 minutes, I asked where the motel was. He said, "You'll know when you see it." Nobody laughed. Nobody reacted. The air in the car felt heavy. The radio stopped working completely. I guess Jess was pretty nervous back there, 'cause she texted me. She was sitting right behind me. Her message said, "Please tell Daniel to stop. His reflection isn't in the mirror." I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't want to look up, but I had to. I looked into the rearview mirror. Daniel, me, Jess, no hitchhiker. But I turned my head slightly. He was still sitting there, now smiling. I whispered Daniel's name, and he looked at me like he already knew. That's when the hitchhiker suddenly said, "You shouldn't have stopped." The car shut off. Like, shut off. It completely died. In the middle of nowhere. No lights, no sound. Jess started crying. She couldn't even contain herself. Daniel tried the ignition again and again and again, but nothing. Then the man opened the door, stepped out and said, "The motel is right there." Across the road was an old abandoned building. I swear it wasn't there before. A broken neon sign, Pine Motel. He walked toward it and disappeared inside. The second he vanished, though, the car suddenly started by itself. Daniel hit the gas so hard, I thought we were gonna flip over. We drove until sunrise and found the first gas station. I had to tell someone. I blurted out the situation to the clerk. His face changed. He asked what motel, and when I told him, he went quiet. He said, "Ma'am, that place burned down in 1987, but 3 people died there. One of them used to hitchhike that road." I don't know what to make of that incident. My jaw dropped. I guess I kind of froze, 'cause the clerk suddenly said, "Are you okay?" I stammered, yeah, and just walked out. I told my brother and Jess. They couldn't believe it either. We never took Route 66 again, and to this day, if I drive at night and see someone standing alone on the road, I keep driving. I was driving home from Chicago to Tennessee by myself for a weekend trip. It was supposed to be peaceful, just some music, coffee, empty roads. Around 2:30 a.m., I realized I was almost out of gas. Careless, I know. My GPS showed a station just about 5 minutes ahead. Perfect, I said to myself. Except when I got there, something felt off. There was no brand name, no Shell, no BP, nothing. Just an old gas station, glowing under white lights like it had been forgotten for 20 years. Creepy part is there was no other cars, no people. But I needed gas, so I pulled in. The second I stepped out, I noticed how quiet it was. Too quiet, so eerie. There was no bugs, no highway noise, nothing. Even the air, it felt wrong. Inside the store, an old woman sat behind the counter, reading a newspaper. She looked up slowly and said, "You shouldn't be here this late." I laughed nervously and said I just needed gas. She stared at me for a second. That second was way too long. Then she said, "Pump 4, and don't go looking behind the building." That should have been enough for me to leave. But I really needed gas, so I didn't. I paid and I went outside. As the pump ran, I kept thinking about what she just said. Don't look behind the building. Okay, so obviously I looked. Curiosity got me. There was a dirt path behind the station, leading into the woods. And parked back there were 6 cars, all covered in dust, like they'd been sitting for years, forgotten about. Doors were open, One even had luggage inside. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. The old woman. She wasn't smiling. She said, "I told you not to look." I asked whose cars they were. She said, "People who stayed too long." Then she pointed at my car and asked, "Did you lock it?" My stomach dropped because I knew I had. But now, the passenger door was open, wide open, and someone was sitting inside. I couldn't see her face, just a silhouette, still waiting. I ran, jumped in, started the car, didn't even close the door all the way. As I sped off, I looked in the mirror. The old woman was standing there waving, and the supposed person in my passenger seat, gone. I didn't stop driving until sunrise. Later, I searched for that gas station. I couldn't find it. Not on Google, not on maps. I even retraced the route months later. There was no station there, just trees. I don't know how to explain it. I'm telling this story because maybe someone has experienced something similar. Sometimes I still wonder, if I had listened to her and never looked behind the building, would I have even noticed who was sitting in my car? Three friends, one cheap cabin rental, and one huge mistake. That was us. Me, my girlfriend Ava, and our friend Marcus rented a mountain Airbnb for a weekend in North Carolina. It looked perfect online. Fireplace, hot tub, huge forest views, and no neighbors for miles. Exactly what we wanted. The owner messaged us saying check-in was easy, just use the lockbox, and please respect the guest book. We thought that was a little weird, but whatever. The cabin was beautiful. Maybe a little too beautiful. Like nobody actually lived there. Everything felt staged. Too perfect. That night, while Ava unpacked, Marcus found the guest book on the coffee table. It was thick, hundreds of pages. At first, it was normal. Messages like, beautiful stay, love the cabin, can't wait to return. And then the entries started to change. One said, he watches from the trees. Another, don't answer knocking after 2 a.m. One more said, if you hear your name outside, it isn't your friend. Marcus just laughed. Ava, however, didn't. And neither did I. At 1:47 a.m., we heard the first knock. 3 slow taps. We all froze. Nobody was expecting anyone. It was just us 3. Marcus checked the Ring camera app. the owner left the login. Nobody there. But the knocking came back again. But this time, from the back door. Ava whispered, "Stop." Then we heard it. Something worse. My voice from outside, calling her name. "Ava, come help me." I was standing right next to her. She didn't contain herself. She started crying. Marcus locked every door. Then, the guest book. It fell off the table by itself, and it opened to a page. It said, "Don't let it inside." And to make things worse, the power went out. It was pitch black. We heard footsteps on the roof, slow and heavy, walking from one end of the cabin to the other, then scratching, like nails dragging across wood. We stayed in the bathroom until sunrise, holding kitchen knives like idiots. The second the sun came up, we left everything and drove away. No shower, no checkout, nothing. I got a text from the owner later. "You should have left before midnight. Most people do." I asked what that meant. He never replied. The Airbnb listing disappeared the next day. It wasn't my imagination. There was 3 of us that experienced this. I don't know what to say. Maybe one of you listening out there have an explanation for us.